Good afternoon and welcome to our webinar series. Thanks for attending. What we're talking about today is IR35. We're going to make an assumption here that the majority of people on this call are aware of what IR35 is, and a bit of a spoiler alert, this won't be a session where we're describing what IR35 is, what the penalties are, and kind of describing it from scratch. This is very much designed for people who have responsibility, either total or partial, for IR35 within large enterprises, really to talk through a growing kind of risk within large enterprises that we're starting to notice through conversations with our larger clients. Really to kind of describe that, bring that to people's attention, talk about Worksome itself and how that might kind of solve the problem and how we're doing that for other clients, and then kind of finish with a case study of how we've actually done that. My name is James Nichols. I'm VP of Solutions over here, and I'm accompanied by Ray Walker, who is our Global Compliance Director and resident IR35 expert. For those of you that are new to Worksome, Worksome is a technology company trying to solve employment issues around the world. We're an end-to-end freelance management system. One of those issues that we solved around the world was IR35. So when we're a Copenhagen-based company, when we came to the UK 3 or 4 years ago, we started working with some major clients. Then the IR35 reforms came through. So we set about from a technology point of view of kind of how to solve that and really how to best deal with the reforms. So we are the only end-to-end IR35 solution. We'll describe kind of a little bit further on what that actually means, but basically it means everything is in one place. It's one of the few classification tools that gives you an instantaneous status determination and allows you to manage the process all in one place. So really what we want to talk about today is, it's been a couple of years since the reforms. Most large companies have some form of process. Those range from different extremes. One is kind of blanket ban on PSCs, as a lot of you know, in the kind of financial and insurance sectors have kind of taken that route, very, very kind of risk adverse. Some people are using standalone classification tools that are insured. Some are using CEST, and some people are using nothing at all, which we don't actually recommend particularly highly, but it is happening out there. So what we wanted to talk to you today is, are there parts of your business where classifications are not being made or are being made outside of your core program processes? Secondly, why an end-to-end kind of IR35 system rather than a standalone classification tool might be the solution for those areas within your businesses. And then, as I said, we work with a large British fashion PLC. Had some really interesting challenges that we've helped them with, so we'll kind of take you through that in the last few minutes of this. So all of those solutions I mentioned earlier are absolutely fine and tend to have been kind of implemented centrally within our enterprise clients. We've been discussing this issue of unmanaged spend, and by that, most large companies have a program of some sort. It's either managed by an MSP, it might be managed internally, it might be managed through a VMS or a supply chain, but it is generally outsourced and managed by someone. When the IR35 reforms came through and it became a client issue rather than a contract issue, that created a number of problems, obviously, client side, either directly for the client from a risk and a management perspective, but also for partners like managed service providers who had to kind of take on those processes and design them themselves. I think as a background, and we've discussed this with enterprises and our kind of MSP partners, and there's always been kind of 15 to 20% of contingent spend that has sat outside of these core programs. It sits in kind of specific areas, which we'll go through in a minute, but I think the businesses and the partners have always been aware that there is spend that is not kind of covered by main core processes. It didn't really matter before massively. Individuals would contract people, different departments would have different ways of doing things, and people would come into large enterprises kind of unchecked, and because the spend is relatively small and because the process was relatively easy, no one really kind of picked up on it, and if they did, it was quite a difficult thing to manage. Now that IR35 is here in its present form, the issue now is creates a classification risk. Now that everything falls on the client, all of those people kind of coming into a business unchecked through unapproved suppliers on different contracts, different classifications even not being classified, is starting to cause quite a problem. So where we've seen this in our kind of major enterprise clients tend to sit around big companies that have creative departments, for instance, that use a lot of freelancers with different skills, marketing departments that use kind of interim marketing skills, the rise of influencers being used, freelancers themselves, interim consultants. A lot of our consulting clients have large alumni networks, for instance, where they bring senior people that used to work for the company back in on kind of interim consulting gigs. And again, they're all coming into the business in a slightly different way than the kind of the core program managers. So there's a reason why these types of people sit outside of your core processes. The talent profile tends to be people, and the project profile tends to be people that need to be onboarded in hours or maximum days, rather than the traditional kind of 30, 40, 50 days that a core program would take to kind of onboard, do all the background checking, things like that. So there's definitely a speed issue. Certain departments within your business will need people very, very quickly. The talent required is a different talent profile, so it tends to be a different set of skills than your core business will use. So it tends to be different channels that your business will find it from, maybe recruiters, staffing suppliers. Again, a lot of these kind of networks are personal as well, so your hiring managers will know these people kind of personally and feel like bringing them directly into the business rather than through your core processes is easier. A lot of the profiles could be likely to be potentially more out of IR35 if handled in slightly different ways. So there's lots and lots of reasons, and also one of those is experience as well, particularly with the kind of the alumni networks and things like that. Being pushed through a very kind of long-winded, lots of disparate systems, things like that are very, very difficult and doesn't kind of give a very good experience. So the problem with this is that it tends to be contracted directly with the business. So people are bringing people in directly, contracting directly with the business, which means that processes are compromised and there's kind of a growing risk within the business that is direct and not managed or outsourced. If I hand over to Ray will kind of take you through the technical aspects of kind of those risks as well.
Cheers, James. Yeah, I'll do the boring stuff. As you say, and everybody will recognise, we're 2 years plus into this program with the IR35 reforms, and we've got evidence now of HMRC's positioning. For those who perhaps haven't seen it, we've seen investigation letters come through from HMRC. We've seen business risk reviews, which are concentrating specifically on the off-payroll side of things. We actually do have a case within the industry now where an actual an investigation for off-payroll reforms has actually been concluded with a large majority of outside IR35 workers, and it actually went on behalf of the client, not on behalf of HMRC. That means that they've come in, they've asked, how you manage your off-payroll talent, and the client was considered to be conducting things in the correct way. Why is that all relevant? It's shown us that HMRC are looking at the entire book of talent that you're using. And they're going really deep into this as well. So if there is this rogue spend that's sitting outside of any programs, you can be sure at some point they'll find that, and they'll then start to understand whether that's been applied to the off-payroll rules or not, depending on what it is. One of the biggest parts of that is the terrible statement of work that people sort of like try and hide around or use, or perhaps just naively think that it sits outside of any of the IR35 boundaries. We're certainly seeing that side. So what it actually means is where we are now. Because of the reforms, the revenue's got an open invite to come into the business, to start asking questions, to understand exactly what the process and procedure is, how and whether you're judging those individuals correctly, and they will find that rogue spend. As you said, James, in previous years, this is nothing new, but it wasn't something the business had to worry about. The risk didn't sit with them; it sat further down into the worker in a PSC. But the change of stance means that now this is something that they need to be concerned about. So, and we're seeing that already. This isn't a guess. This is actually happening, and HMRC are making their moves on this already.
Perfect, thank you. There's from what we see, there's two problems. One is you have a business and they need to get people into that business. So it is around speed. It's around, in certain respects, keeping your clients happy as well and getting resources into the business that can do that. So there's a pressure from the hiring side to get that done really quickly and in a really kind of good, experienced way. On the other side, obviously, and a lot of people on this call will kind of resonate with this, there's a control issue as well. And in very, very large enterprises, there is always going to be a resistance to letting any hiring manager or any contact anywhere in the business to be able to kind of classify someone, contract someone, and bring them in. So you've kind of got these two differing point of views that I guess what we've tried to do at Worksome is bring those two things together, is to allow the speed and almost give the hiring manager the power to hire as and when they need to, but give compliance departments and legal the reassurance that that process that they're going through is controlled. The reason that we can do that is through technology. Rishi, who's sitting in the background, if you want to play the video, I mean, what I'll do is just kind of talk you through how Worksome does this and what's kind of applicable. A lot of our clients have...
James, you've been muted, mate. System muted you.
Oh, my back. Yeah.
Yes.
Keeps doing. You think I know that by now, but so a lot of our clients are using standalone classification tools, which is absolutely fine. They're very good at what they do. They tend to be fully insured, which is absolutely wonderful and reassuring for our clients. But the problem we find is that, again, there's a collection of disparate systems that everybody has to go through to get these things done. There will be a way that you generate a contract. There will be a way that you source a contract. There'll be a way that you do a background check. There will be a separate system that you move into to do a classification. That classification takes a certain amount of time and a certain amount of resource from the worker, hiring managers, internal people within the enterprise, and all of that takes a long time. But also that takes, it gives a big margin of error and human error from there. So what we've tried to do, as Rishi just showed, is be able to put a process into a piece of technology which allows all parts of that process to be done in one. So what it will do is, do you want to run it again, Rishi, as well, because it's quite quick, but what it will do is allow your hiring managers to send a link to a worker. That worker will be able to enter the Worksome system.
Mute it again, James.
Just caught that. But yeah, so what it'll do is allow you to send a link and contract a worker. That worker can enter the system really quickly. It allows your hiring managers to push a button and create a authorized contract that will have been created between us and our enterprises. So everything that you require in there is there. That gets sent directly to the worker. After that, as you can see, what we've done here is built the test into the platform. Ray can talk you through more of the details of what is in the test and how things are weighted, but ultimately, because the worker, the hiring manager, and the suppliers are in our system, it means that we can draw all the information that is required to fill out this test into one place. So you don't have to go chasing company details, tax numbers, all of those kind of things. What's the piece of work? Sending on kind of all of those emails backwards and forwards, trying to gather the information to put it there. It's all in one place. So that's the real trick, I think, to Worksome, is it allows centralization of how you want to work with off-payroll workers. It allows you to set a bunch of controls that people can't change, and it allows you to kind of allow your hirers, who are the best people to bring these people into your business, but it allows them to do it through a really kind of safe and secure way. This isn't instead of your main programs. I mean, Worksome is complementary. We work with many MSP partners, VMS partners, and direct with businesses as well. Worksome is particularly designed to sit alongside those systems. So everything that's going through the core process, it means that your hirers that are looking for that different type of talent have a really easy tool to work with. They can go there, they can find the talent, they can hire the talent, contract the talent, classify the talent, and you know essentially that everything's been done. So what we're looking for here, what I'll take you through is one of our clients that is actually.
I think before you do that, James, just to add into that, and I agree with what you're saying, the question is sort of all about rogue spend, and the point should be how and why does that happen, which you talked about, which is time to get the individual on board is one of those biggest factors. The controls around that, and that's the plus point about the Worksome system, because it's so I can't even say integrated, because it's one system. It's not integrated with anything as such. It just all comes together. But it means that you've actually got the people who might be trying to get around the system, the hiring managers, have got no gain in doing so anymore, because they can get the individuals on board within a matter of moments, because they can then satisfy the compliance side of things. They don't have to be experts in that as well. The system's designed to take that away from them. It means that they don't have to fight and try and find ways and loopholes to get these individuals on site as quick as possible. That gives the senior stakeholders within the business, again, the confidence that they know that they've not got anything hiding. They haven't got that risk, that unknown risk that's sitting there. It's all being in there. And again, because of the compliance element of it, it's picked that up as well, so that when in any type of conversation about off payroll spend is had, you can be confident that everybody's captured. They're all being classified in the correct way, and then all being managed in a payroll perspective. I will add, the part that we talked about with other suppliers is about them being insured. That's what we've done with ours as well, to make sure that we've got an insurance program through Kingsbridge, who will underpin any outside IR35 work. And that's because they've done the due diligence on our system to recognise that what we're producing is to a level that they're comfortable with, and means that they're happy to underwrite the product that we're producing.
Perfect. Yeah, what I want to talk about is a case study of one of our clients. So a British fashion retailer came to us with a specific set of issues. As I said before, they've kind of looked around the market and everything, and for many things that could solve kind of specific issues, but not everything in one. Their biggest fear was, as we said, the biggest source of failure would be human error and the actual kind of total admin burden that would be put on the client to make this work. Well, like a lot of clients, what they did was hire contracts through long, kind of open-ended contracts, which is not a very good thing for IR35, if everyone is aware. So what they were looking for is a system that would allow them to really kind of tightly scope projects for the contractors that they brought in, but wouldn't lead to them having to generate contract after contract after contract after contract, reclassify constantly. People moving from different projects means, again, you have to reclassify, and there was a risk of kind of all of those things falling through the cracks. So as you can see from the data, what we managed to do was kind of move them onto the system. They've managed to bring down their kind of open-ended contracts, and now they sign kind of weekly contracts that are very kind of tightly scoped. Everybody knows exactly what the contractor is looking to do, and that's very, very easy to manage on the system. It's a question of kind of clicking a few buttons, redefining the scope. As you can see from the video, it's potentially easy to kind of reclassify people quickly when the scope has happened. And that kind of leads to a number of things. So to date, they've added over 300 people into their talent pools, something we touched on earlier as well. So they've also added kind of staffing suppliers as well into the platform, so they can make use of the classification tool as well. So there isn't a set of suppliers elsewhere running through a different process. And as you can see, they've been making the majority of people they've brought in, over 500 people, they've made nearly 500 classifications. 388 of those are outside, which is pretty market leading. As Ray said, they've done it in a safe way. They are fully educated. They're fully aware of how they're doing things, how they should be doing things, and just making those kind of outside safe determinations is leading to masses of savings on that side. They are not kind of paying payroll fees for the sake of it, like a lot of companies are, by going through blanket PSE bans. Rates have remained sensible and negotiated. They haven't kind of shot through the roof like a lot of other areas. And as I said, it's the average length of engagement that's really interesting. It's not as though they're using people any less. It just means that they are very, very tightly scoping what people are doing, and there's a very clear deliverable, and that's absolutely perfect within the system. So, I mean, that's kind of what we're aiming to do. There seems to be a growing trend that after 2 years now, and it's totally sensible. I mean, enterprises are very large, complicated places, and people have gone to the kind of centralized route of getting as much as they can through a particular supplier. But it was just really to kind of highlight these areas that are growing within the enterprise.
Yeah, I mean, from the parts that you talk about with regards to that case study, just this week I've had 2 situations where we've had one where everything from a compliance perspective goes through one person, and you can imagine how much of a bottleneck that is for anybody. And again, it's disincentivizes anybody to go and run through the program correctly. That individual, when I'm speaking to them and showing them how it sort of runs through, their eyes light up because they realize that suddenly they're not going to be the business prevention officer anymore. And then you've got the other ones who have got those vague contracts because they got their talent and they want to move them around and put them from, into different clients or different requirements. And explain to them about that, the ease of which it is to do a booking and to have them down for, you know, they recognise they've got up and down periods for the workers, but they were keeping them engaged all the time because administratively it was easier. That then going, okay, we can take a booking and it takes moments to do, and you know it's got all the compliance elements with it as well, means that they can on and off board their workers really quickly. It doesn't make a difference to the workers. They're quite happy they're working in the way that they would have been anyway. They can obviously go and fill the gaps if they want with other sort of business that's there, which if you're a true IC, that's what you should be doing anyway. But it just sort of like shows exactly what our intention was when building out Worksome is actually being realized. It is giving that freedom, that flexibility, and more importantly, the control to everybody who requires it in whichever way that they require it. So yeah, go back to the original point of the webinar about rogue spend. As I say, there's definitely a risk to that. That's probably the biggest risk out there. You might have a wonderful program, but if HMRC find that, you can guarantee they're going to be putting their teeth into it. This is a way of identifying that quite quickly and quite easily, but also removing those hurdles as to why there might have been rogue spend in the first place. So, but that's my overview, I'd say.
Absolutely, yeah. And just to finish off, it's a very easy thing to solve. You know, it's a technology solution. It's easy to upload all of your networks by users into the platforms. We agree contracts essentially with enterprises to make sure that everything you require from a compliance perspective is in that contract. Post that, it's very simple and intuitive to use. There's lots of kind of user training. It usually starts with an audit of those areas just to find out kind of what's been going on, who are the main users, bringing them onto the platform, explaining very simply how it works, why it's in their interests. And then from there, it flows very simply. Anybody new coming onto the platform, as I said, can be invited simply from a link. Worksome are on hand to kind of add education and support as they go. I know from Ray's team as well that it's not just a system. Things are supported by people around it. We carry out audits, we carry out kind of updating of legislation, all of those things as it goes along, and keep up to speed, educating our clients around IR35 as it evolves in the UK. Cool. Well, I think that's it from us. If you're interested, you can obviously go to our website, or you can reach out to us directly, and we'll be more than happy to kind of talk about your requirements and move through things. We've got a few minutes left. If there's any questions from the floor, we're more than happy to kind of try and discuss them in this last few minutes. If not, thank you very much for attending.